Hey everybody, Tag Life Done Free. Hey, today we're going to do, or the intent was to do the fourth video in the group series. But as we got into it, there's just so much information. And so we cut it off at about an hour. So we're going to keep filming these. I don't know how long it's going to take. There were 8 main topics we were going to talk about. We got through one in about 50 minutes or so. So, I hope you stick around. I hope you keep watching them. I don't know how long it's going to take us to do it, but we're going to try to schedule one a week and see if we can get through this. But before I get on to the video, one last thing too is I will be at the Self-Reliance Festival in Camden, Tennessee on June the 11th and 12th. I hope to see somebody out there. Any of you guys are going to make it, send me a message. I'd love to meet up and just say hello and you'll get a cup of coffee or whatever it is. So anyway, I hope to see you there. And without further ado, I present Build Community, Part 4, The Tribe. See you guys. We are back with video 4 of our 4-part series. I'd like to welcome back Mr. Spags, Mr. Data, Mr. Hitch. Just so we kind of begin, let me just recap kind of what we've covered before. Video 1 covered just kind of a general building community. Video number 2 talked about the outer circle, or what we call the mind. This is the place that we recruited from. This was the pool, the big pool of people that we visit with every single day. The third video was the mag, and that's as that bigger circle gets a little bit smaller in its uses. And today we're going to cover the crew, the tribe, the family, or whatever it is you call it. Before we begin, I thought I would share a comment. Mandy Garrett commented on one of the other community videos, and I love the comment so much. It was so insightful that I thought I would begin this video with her comment. And I won't read the whole thing, but I'll read a little bit of it. But anyway, she said, "Thank you for yet another awesome video. I know it's intent to be about community, but I learned way more than just building community. It's also a self-check to see if we would qualify to be part of someone's mag. Before we start checking everyone else, we might want to look within." I love that comment. Powerful. Right? That is if you can't be part of the solution and you can't give of yourself, you have no business doing anything but being a lone wolf and doing it on your own. Right. So, yeah, go ahead, Data.
That's a pretty powerful statement, man. That's some magic stuff right there. That's real talk.
Yeah. I replied to her that it was great insight, and yeah, I really appreciated it. And that's kind of why I thought I would, start that video, start the video today with her comment. And I hope, Mandy, you're watching, and, that self evaluation, I think, is a huge attribute to any community. Bob, you got any comments?
Yeah, learn to be a doer and make yourself desirable. It's true in everything else, right? No one wants to date you if you're not desirable. Nobody wants to hire you if you're not desirable. Why would I want you in an enclosed space waiting out for the meteor to strike Earth if you're not desirable?
Yeah.
And I don't mean that like in a physical way. I mean that in like, what are you bringing? What makes you worthy? What makes you desirable?
Ooh.
Yeah. Hitch, you got any comments to that, I guess, that comment?
Yes. The art of being a professional hanger-on. I had my youth many moons ago, an older family member taught me about this. And what he said is, it's okay to crash on someone's couch, maybe even crash on their couch for an extended period of time. But if you want to make sure that you get invited back and make sure you don't get shooed away, always make sure you find yourself valuable to where they hate to see you leave. He said that might include going and vacuuming the floor, sweeping the rug, doing the dishes, maybe cooking some meals. He says do things that don't even cost any money, but just make yourself so that the thought of you leaving is worse than the thought of you staying.
Yeah, I can't wait in this video to talk about what makes you valuable. But Data, you have any comments?
I do. I think that self-reflection, self-evaluation is something that we've broached a few times in this video series. It's something that I struggle with myself. Again, I try to stay humble. You guys all know, I'm like anybody else. I have an ego, and sometimes that ego gets ahead of me, and I try very hard to keep it in check, keep me in check. And part of that is self-reflection, self-evaluation, and sometimes to my own detriment. I can be my own worst enemy. I can be my own worst critic. And sometimes it's easy to spin in circles, questioning your own self-worth. I do it all the time. As confident as I try to appear on the side, man, I'm just a oozing, mess of what if, should I, did I, could I have? But yeah, it makes sense. I get it.
Well, I think to her point that I think that's advice that you can take to every aspect of life. Am I a good husband? Am I a good father? Am I a good friend? Right? Am I good? And I think that's a great thing. But anyways, let's get this video kicked off, huh, guys? Okay, here we go. Well, I guess to kind of start this, we're going to talk about the crew, the tribe, the family. And I think just to kind of begin, I'd like to hear everybody's opinion on what's the point. What's the purpose of it? Bobby?
Well, like we've said before, you have to sleep sometime. And with that in mind, you realize that you have to have an inner circle of people that you absolutely trust. And those are the people you are willing to ride out uncertainty with. You can't do it alone very easily. I'm not saying that some people couldn't do it, but for the most part, it's pretty impractical. And you don't want to have a loose group of folks that aren't committed to each other because you don't know where their motivation lies. So having a tight inner circle that for a fact you can trust your life, your wife, your wallet with, I think that's pretty key to the whole foundational reason we even do what we do.
Yeah, Hitch, what do you think?
Fellowship. Regardless of whether or not you've got a tinfoil hat on or whatever kind of hat you're wearing, if you're watching this channel, you have some sort of interest in homesteading or prepping. If you're watching this channel, you have interests that parallel with people that are watching this channel and other people that are like-minded. And so whether you believe that the bottom's going to fall out of the bucket next week, next month, next year, or next generation, really doesn't matter. People ask me, why do you do much energy and pour so many reserves into this? Well, I don't know. I turn around, if it's somebody I know, I look at them. Like one guy, I said, why do you pour tens of thousands of dollars into your race car that you go race on the dirt track and you never win any money? Well, because I like it. This is what I enjoy. My friends do it, and I go hang out with my friends. And well, same here. I get to hang out with the people I like. If nothing bad ever happens, ever, I got to hang out with the people I like. I got to do things I enjoy doing. I got to eat food that I grew and my family and friends grew, and I got to experience this fellowship. And I think that's really, really important. People start to think that this is some sort of crazy tinfoil hat thing. At the end of the day, I got to hang around with a lot of really neat, cool people. And you show me the 5 people you spend the most time around, and I'll tell you a lot about yourself and where you're going. And so I think these are all important things to take away from this whole exercise, because at the end of the day, it's just fellowship. It really is. If we live through it, it's fellowship, right? We're still hanging around people we like. So yeah, might we end up hanging around people that we may not like, or we may decide we don't like anymore on the other side of some event? That could come. That could be true, right? But at the end of the day, no. Why we do it? It's important to us.
Yeah, Data.
Oh, it's something. Again, this is something we've talked about in the previous videos. For me, it's tribalism, a sense of being a part of a tribe, being a part of something greater than what I was born to be, or what I feel like I currently am a part of. From my earliest memories on the playground and looking for a friend, someone to push, or someone to sit on the other end of the teeter-totter, and then later on in life, someone to make out with in the backseat of a car at the movies. It's always been an evolution of a longing to be a part of something greater than what I am. In an extrovert's world, that's been the goal. The motivation for me was to drive my inner tribe to be a part of a greater tribe, than to be again a part of a larger tribe in that. So I think it's just some of that Hakuna Matata circle of life stuff, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would add a little bit to what Hitch said is that I think it's about the psychological part of all this. for me. It's about having someone to pick me up when I fall. It's about having someone to help me accomplish all of the incredible tasks that would go along, with it if something was to happen. It's about, someone who could be an 80 when I can only be a 20, or, whatever it is, and about finding that family. And so that's what I think it's about. And so I guess just to kind of start, what are you looking for? Bobby, what are you looking for when you go down this road?
I'm looking for commonality, and I'm looking for compatibility. You can have a great set of skills and be completely uncompatible, and you can have a lot of compatibility and have absolutely no skills. So you're kind of looking for that compromise, that middle ground that broaches both of those sides of the bridge, right? You need someone that's compatible with you and the other people you've already possibly started with, but you also need somebody who holds that value that would make their compatibility even more desirable.
Yeah, Data, what are you looking for?
That's a loaded question.
They all are.
Aren't they all though? Yeah. Again, I think that kind of goes back to that inner desire, that innate desire to search out for that which completes me. I'm just looking for, again, those things that help, bolster my weaknesses, and, yeah, see those things that bolster, or hide my weaknesses and bolster my strengths, cater to my strengths, those virtues, that offset mine. First and foremost, do our personalities match? Can we tolerate each other's jokes or sense of humor? Can we put up with each other's BS? On my worst day, when I am in my worst form, when I'm self-loathing and just full of, vitriol and anger, can you tolerate me? Can you still call me friend after I've lost my top? That's what I'm looking for. Those types of, I guess, personalities. I know my wife is a classic example. We are the furthest on the opposite ends of the spectrum from one another in terms of personality goes. But I think it's that separation or that difference, or at least that gap from our personalities that allow us to mesh and kind of complete one another. I look for the same types of relationships, I guess, in my prepping and other lives, social lives. So,
Hitch?
I'm looking for partners in crime. When I was young, man, as we're sitting here, I was thinking about, trying to remember before I was a prepper, and that's so long ago. And I was thinking about, before I was a prepper, I was just out of high school, and I was doing bad things with other bad guys. And why did I pick those guys? Because we got along, and if one of us said do something, we'd all do it together. This is the same thing, it's the same thing. If I say, hey, Tag, I've got a cow out here on the road, and I need help getting it in, yep, I'm in. If I say, hey, Data, apparently growing your own sweet corn is illegal. You want to help me plant sweet corn today? I'm in. If I say, hey, Spags, I need you to save me some bottles and jars and stuff with lids, because we're going to put something in there the government doesn't want us to make and put in there, I'm in. I mean, again, at the end of the day, it's, you're getting that inner circle. This is an intimate level. These are got to be your core people. These are the people that are, well, there's a little bitty circle in front of that, which is your family. That's your spouse and your kids. But otherwise, these people they're that circle adhered to that circle. These are your best friends. And so really, I'm looking for my partners in crime. We're gonna want to do the same things together. And if one of us says, hey, let's do it, it sounds a little crazy, the rest of us go, I think we can pull this off.
Yeah, I think this is such a fascinating topic, and it's a deep topic that we could talk hours just simply on this one point right here. And you talk about getting along with people, which is a huge issue, right? And you talk about those kind of things, but I find it fascinating that when I asked you guys this question, nobody brought up I needed a plumber. I needed an engineer, I need a doctor, which is what you read on the internet, right? When you're looking for your group, look for this particular skill set. Every one of you guys, the answer that came back had some other virtue, whether it was tolerance or acceptance or, whatever. And I've often said the most important virtue of a crew member's attitude, that it's above everything else. And we'll disagree on some of these points, but because I don't want to hang around a Debbie Downer, and I need someone who could be my 80 if I'm a 20. And, and I want to be someone's 80 when they're a 20, but I think it's absolutely fascinating. And so this kind of leads into the next question is, how do you manage, virtues versus skills and versus, supplies from the prepper world? How do you balance them in, Bobby?
Well, again, I hate to keep repeating myself, but every decision is an economic decision. You have to weigh the ratio between the cost of what you want and what it is you want, what it gets you. So not everything can be skill based, but at the same point, not everything can just be compatibility based. You have to kind of balance it. Like, you can have a guy who's a neurosurgeon who, if you get shot in the back, can in the field with what he has potentially save you from becoming paralyzed, right? But he might be the biggest asshole the world's ever seen. So you have to ask yourself, is it okay for this guy who 99.9% of the time will never perform his skill set or duty, so that one time, should circumstances align up just right where that one thing happens where I want him, is this worth that?
Yeah.
And if you can't just say yes, if you sit there and even stagger for a second, chances are you should really think twice about making that decision. And it goes the other way around too. You could have somebody who has the greatest attitude, who is always there to lift you up when you fall, but at the same point really doesn't do anything. So you have to be like, well, what am I getting for what I pay?
Yeah. So how do you balance that though, Bobby? What's the answer? How much weight?
There is no answer.
How much weight do you put into it?
It's an individual choice, and each decision has to be made independently. There is no formula that I know of. You can't say that on a scale of 1 to 10 over here on compatibility, and a scale of 1 to 10 over here on a set of skills, if they're a 5 or better on both, we're good. Because what happens if it is somebody, let's say you have a really good solar setup and your entire operation revolves around that solar setup. You're probably going to look for an electrician or an electrical engineer who can keep that running through the hailstorms and through cluster bombings and through famine and dust bowls. And you're probably going to be a lot more willing to put up with some BS on this level. So it's not just a 5 and 5 or above. It could be skewed one way or the other. But on the other hand, you could have someone who's a rifleman and they can hit a flea's ass from 200 yards with a 22 pistol, but they're absolutely toxic. Right. So, I mean, there is no formula. It's just what you individually and your group as a communal group decides they're willing to do.
Yeah. What about you, Hitch? How do you view that?
Let's pretend that we're in a group here, all 4 of us. Okay. And let's pretend that we're all best friends. And let's pretend that the 4 of us, just complete each other in every way for our prepping. I'm going to need somebody that can do something that you guys cannot provide me.
I have my tone.
I'm going to have to look outside the group to find a wife who can provide me a child. Cool. If as a group of 4 we decide that we need a doctor, then all 4 go out and start shopping for a new doctor buddy. I really think it's that simple. I really do, because you bring some people around, like you go through the various layers we talked about previously. We all 4 of us, we get to independently meet them or together meet them or whatever, and we kind of figure out where it fit. This person, obviously, by the time they get to this level of the circle, they're starting to figure out, they know what's going on, right? They've been in the outer 2 layers already. They wanted to be there. And so they're looking for us just as much as we're looking for them. And then we decide, hey, are we the 5 musketeers now? Are we bringing this guy and his family in? I mean, I really think that's what it boils down to. So I don't think it's difficult. If the group decides to need a plumber, then okay, we all go start shopping for a plumber and we start meeting plumbers, and because you've already brought them into those other layers that we talked about in the previous shows.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah, I think for me, I look at it like, what skills am I capable of learning versus one skill I'm not capable of learning. like, I'm probably not going to open a book and learn, to become a nuclear engineer, right? I mean, it's just not. And so maybe you weight that a little more than a common skill, like, a baker, or, something that would be a little more common, where I think you can be a little more picky about, well, yeah, they're a baker, but man, they're just so toxic. I just don't want anything to do with it. Go ahead, Bobby. Were you gonna say something?
No, I was agreeing.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that's also important, weighing whether or not the skill is something we can learn or be taught, take a class, whatever it is, versus a skill that you're probably not. You talked about the surgeon, you got shot in the back, and that's probably not something we're going to Google or take a class on and be, proficient at. And so I think you got to kind of weigh that up too. But I think I would echo one other thing. There's probably nothing worse in a family setting than a virus or a cancer. It will destroy everything, you got around. And I didn't mean to skip you, Data. What were your thoughts on that?
No, that's cool. Yes. So in terms of managing the virtues or character versus skills versus supply, to me, it's Bobby hit the nail on the head when he used the word balance. To me, it's about balance, but it's slightly skewed in my opinion, and this is just my opinion. For as far as the way I view it, or the way I weigh it or measure it, it's heavily based on whether or not I can trust you, whether or not I feel like you're going to prey upon me, prey upon my wife, prey upon my children, prey upon my good nature, prey upon my friends. Mm-hmm. That's really and this is me being very intimate. I'm opening up to you and to you other guys on this call, and to all the potential thousands of people that are viewing this. This is the real data that you're hearing here. I look for those types of things more than anything else. I don't care how much money you have, land, skills, supplies, all those things are great. And we all have agreed at one point in time in various conversations that supplies are going to run out. I don't care how much corn you have, how much corn you can grow. It's now eventually you won't be able to feed everyone. And eventually you're going to have to, resort to alternate means. But that's all besides the point. Skills can be taught, like you'd mentioned, Tag, or can you be taught those skills, or can you gain those skills through repetition or just through, trial and error? But again, going back to character and going back to virtues, it's very difficult. You can be taught character, you can be taught virtues, but it's difficult. And I find it seems that unfortunately, the older we get and the more set in our ways and the more serious we take ourselves, the less susceptible we are to hearing someone else out when it comes to checking ourselves, or self-assessing ourselves as to whether or not we are capable of, being tolerant, or capable of being a participant in something that doesn't just involve my ego.
Yeah, I think this is a super fascinating point, because it's a hard balance. I've always said that I look at attitude first, commitment second, character third, skills fourth, and supplies last. But that's got to kind of be a fluid thing, right? It can't really be set in stone, because again, you run into a surgeon or something, and maybe that skews those lines just a little bit. It's just super fascinating. But I would just stress to everybody that watching out here today, if you've got a cancer inside your group, get rid of it, because it is just not worth it. The damage that's caused, by it, it's just, just simply not worth it. Data, you said something interesting, which was the self-assessing part. And how important is it for us to be able to take a look in the mirror and say, am I a good friend? Am I being a good partner? Am I giving of myself? Am I generous, right? Am I compassionate? Am I tolerant? Because at the end of the day, and this is to everybody watching out there, all four of us on this call are flawed. We are absolutely flawed. We all have our issues that make us that way. And every single person you meet is going to have those issues. And so how much self-reflecting goes into being, to building a tribe, as, the lady that I commented on earlier, Mandy Garrett earlier, how much does that go into it? Data, and I'll start with you because you really started that.
How much what now? Say that again. How much
Did you-
self-reflection goes into
Yeah,
it?
how much self-reflection should go into this? I mean, because it seems like everyone wants to talk about, okay, I need this person, or I need this skill set, or I need this, I need this, I need this. Like they're coming to join this holy grail of things, when the truth be told, you're as screwed up as everybody else is. Right, Data? And you are. So same with me, same with Bobby, you know, same with Hitch.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. You know, and I'm pretty sure. I'm very confident. I've admitted to every one of you guys in this call before, to the accolades and levels to which I subscribe. I am a schmuck, you know, or how often I appear as a schmuck, you know, or make poor decisions. But that's a part of life. I don't let those decisions own me. I try to grow from them. You know, I try to apologize when I need to, and I try to be the bigger man when I should be. So how much self-reflection should go into that equation? As much as you can spare. Because again, I think that's where most people don't realize the hang up or disconnect in these types of situations is where to check your ego at the door, and then where to stand up and pound on your chest as an alpha male or alpha female, in knowing or feeling like your position is right. You know, when do you back down and say, okay, let's agree to disagree, or go along to get along? You know, so being able to self-reflect and check yourself, it's not easy. And most people I don't even think most people take the time to do it, let alone realize that it should be done. So that's a tough one, man. And I think that's probably where you should start is, do you even do that at all? Do you even look yourself in the mirror and question the person that's looking back at you? Am I a vain person? Am I a tolerant, trustworthy person? Am I a good friend? Am I a good steward? You know, I think that's where it starts.
Yeah, and I'd like to hear from everybody on this. But that's kind of why I wanted to begin this video with Mandy's comment, because I just thought it was just so profound. But Hitch, what do you think about this? Self-reflection.
You should always be working to better yourself. And again, you know, going back to the fellowship, you know, surround yourself with people that encourage you to better yourself, you know. Like Data said, you know, he's often a schmuck, and we try to help him, you know, better himself. Sorry, I was trying to fit that in there while you were drinking, see if I get the Kool-Aid to come out of your nose.
Oh, see.
No, but seriously, in all seriousness, though, we should always be looking to better ourselves. You know, I mean, that's one of the tenets of Christianity. You know, if you follow faith, or most faiths really, is to constantly be bettering yourself to achieve a better plane, a better, you know, better level of understanding, a better level of interaction with other human beings. And again, I think that's that, you know, you're surrounding yourself with people that will challenge you to do better. You know, Tag, you and I know each other pretty well, and you have no problem telling me, you know, calling me on the carpet saying, hey, that thing you did there, yeah, I don't know about that. And me the same with you. We don't even think about it anymore. Our spouses, you know, should do the same for us. They should encourage us to be better men, you know. So that self-reflection is important in the beginning, but it's always going on. And I think that the right people around you will help you. And there's a difference between, you know, browbeating somebody and, you know, and helping them, but you know, that comes with maturity.
Yeah, I think that's a really insightful comment, Hitch. You know, you as you mentioned, you and I have known each other a long, long time. And I think that the best thing you can do is to be a friend that can take criticism and give criticism, right? That not take it all super personal. You know, there's a Data and I got into an argument one day. This was a while, I don't know, a year ago or 2 years ago. And I had said something he had taken offense to. He didn't come right to me and say, hey, you made me mad, and let it stew a little bit. And in the end, it was fine. And you know, we got through it, but it caused some heat for just a little bit, right, Data?
Yeah.
So,
There was a while I wanted to punch you in the mouth.
yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. I've had people tell me I'm an acquired taste. It's okay. Bobby, what do you think about self-reflection?
Yes, all the things. I think that the important lesson when we're talking about self-reflection, and it's something that I tend to talk about a lot actually, is this is why we have to avoid the idea of hero worship. You know, you said it best when you said everyone on this call is flawed. Every one of us has a negative in our ledger. And unfortunately, in the prepping and homesteading circles, it becomes very easy to start to idolize the people that we see on the screen. It becomes very easy to start idolizing the big YouTube channels that we watch, or the person who's got that special show on the History Channel or whatever, right? And then you find out something about them later in a tabloid, or you find out that their channel got shut down for X reasons, and you become very disappointed. And you become disappointed because you elevated that person. Well, I think for us, we need to have the self-reflection to realize that we cannot allow ourselves to be elevated like that. You know, it's one thing to enjoy the time on screen. It's one thing to enjoy the fact that people come up to you at a camp out or an expo and ask your opinion and your advice on because they see you as somebody who might have some knowledge. But self-reflection to me has to have an underlying foundation of humility. And no matter how badass we are in our own minds, no matter how much other people like us, and this is directly to your audience, none of us as though you should try to work your way into our acceptance. We should have to accept you too.
Right.
And we can only do that if we continuously reflect on ourselves and realize, man, I've got a net negative over here, and I really need to bring that up. And part of that is confession, which, Hitch brought up Christianity and faith. Confession is a part of almost every faith too. You have to acknowledge where you're wrong, and you have to acknowledge your weaknesses. If you can't do that, you're not self-reflecting. And if you can't do that, look, it's the guy in the prepping circles that will never self-reflect, who thinks he's the biggest badass out of all of them, that will end up being the governor from The Walking Dead. He's the one who becomes the charismatic speaker who everyone flocks around, but he ends up becoming a tyrant because in his mind, he can do no wrong. Nobody here should be striving to be that guy.
Yeah, I think, man, that's a super great point. And I think you bring up another point that we need to talk about is how important is it for common ground on things like religion and politics, right? The two things we always say we're never going to talk about. But, when you talk about being tolerant, you talk about being accepting. I mean, here we are, right? I mean, so I think it's important to kind of talk about it. So, Bobby, is common ground on religion important?
It can be. I'm going to preface this by saying that maybe the reason we're told never to talk about politics and religion is because we never talk about politics and religion. And so we never get good at talking about politics and religion,
Right.
Yes, I think that for the average scenario, has to be some baseline, at least, of commonality, but there doesn't necessarily have to be. I think that the ability to tolerate an opposing viewpoint is probably more important than having a common viewpoint.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong, it is easier and it's greater if everybody around here has the exact same political philosophy, religious philosophy, prepping philosophy, because we're probably never going to argue about that stuff.
Right.
But if we're not arguing about that, perhaps we end up arguing over who gets the biggest piece of the pie after we do something, right? Because we're all in lockstep, so we all go do something, and then we find something different to argue about. We, as a species, are argumentative, period. And so learning how to navigate that is probably more important than everybody being in lockstep with each other.
Yeah, that is so fascinating. I think I would add to your statement in that if you can't have tolerance in reference to someone's beliefs, how are you ever going to have tolerance in the other things?
Right.
I don't see how that's possible.
It goes back to the self-reflection point. A very good friend of mine, when I was much younger and I was a lot more entrenched in a certain mindset, and I always read books and watched TV shows by that mindset, he looked at me and he goes, "Have you ever read anything from an opposing point of view?" And I'm like, "No, why would I do that?" And he goes, "Well, because you actually don't know if you believe what you claim to, because you've never challenged yourself with the opposing viewpoint."
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't like hearing that, but him saying that caused self-reflection.
You've challenged my reality.
And so I started going out reading books and watching shows and listening to speakers from a completely different point of view. And from 20 to now 43, some things have changed.
Oh, he just dated himself. Did you catch that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Bobby, I think that's super insightful. Hitch, what do you think about politics and religion and being on common ground?
Well, I think it's definitely pretty important. I think it would be remiss not to lay some importance on that. I'm often told that I'm too liberal for conservatives and too conservative for liberals, and too anarchist for people that love government. I don't know, whatever you want to say, but at the end of the day, I would have a very difficult time hunkering down or being good buddies with someone who I view as a statist. And by statist, I mean someone that is always saying there ought to be a law for this, there ought to be a law for that, and we need more rules and we need more control. And if we have more rules and laws, we're going to be safer. And if we outlaw certain things, we're going to be safer. Because baby, liberty is risk. And I'm all about risk. I'm all about risk. So yeah, that's a problem for me. People that are, pretty hard set in their ways in those politics. And then the same way with religion, if there's such a thing, I might say I'm a libertarian Christian, at the end of the day, because I don't attend a particular church because I don't like some of their ways, some of their rules. I don't like some of their extremism. But I'm confident in my faith. I'm confident where I'm at. I've got friends that are of other Christian faiths. We share some common truths, but at the end of the day, there's some things they think that like they would say, whisper amongst themselves, and know they do. He's doing it wrong, And I guess as long as we can get along and be buddies, that's fine. But when it crosses a line of like, harsh judgment, again, like that statism, then that can start to become a big difficulty, in a group when you get down to the nitty gritty and times are tough and there's not enough donuts to go around for everybody. So that's my 2 cents.
That's an interesting point. So how do you balance the difference between the two words you use, which is libertarian and Christian, which is a fascinating combination to me? To be a libertarian on one side says that, if you're not hurting somebody else, if you're not, removing someone else's constitutional rights, you're free to do whatever you want to do. And I don't care. Right. But on the other side, sure, Christianity says that, I am the way, I am the light. Right. And so I think that's an interesting.
Well,
go ahead.
God was the first anarchist. He gave everybody free will. So, do what
Great
you're going to
point.
do. There may be consequences for certain things you do. Okay.
Mhm.
Here's this tiny set of rules of things I don't think you should do. But other than that,
Yeah.
if you make a mistake, come back to me, just like, like any father. Hey, I tell my children, you screw up, come tell me the truth. We'll work it out. You continue to lie about it, there's going to be some consequences. Yeah, I think that's the same thing. So how do I balance it? Just like that. I'm not going to judge anybody else. I might tell them, hey, the thing you're doing might be problematic for you in the future, but that's the thing. You're not harming me.
So you're saying that on the
Does
political
that answer your
front,
question?
yeah, well, kind of. I mean, are you saying that on the political front, it's harder to tolerate than on the religious front? Like you can cope better with someone with a different religion than someone with a different, I don't really want to say politics because that really doesn't do it justice, right? We're talking about the state.
Philosophy.
Yeah, philosophy. Maybe that's a better way to say that. Yeah, Bobby. Good.
Yeah. I'm saying that I can get along great with someone who's I have Muslim friends. So I can get along great with a Muslim. I can get along great with Buddhists. I know a few people that are Buddhists actually as of recent time, and I get along fine with them because my philosophy, my political philosophy, is live and let live. They're not harming me, I'm not harming them, and we have great conversations because neither one of us feel threatened. Yeah.
Data, what do you think about this topic?
Oh, yeah, shoot, man. You guys know me. My entire life, I've been like a leaf on a wind in the wind, or just another drop of water in the ocean. I've kind of been, for the most part, a go with the flow kind of guy. And when it comes to religion and politics, all of us have had some pretty extravagant conversations. I've had conversations with you guys about everything from, Jesus and Mary Magdalene to, smooth featured aliens having coitus with primates. We've all talked about, and shared our viewpoints on these different subjects, up and down the spectrum. And I think that it's something to be said that we share similarities and we can have those discussions. I don't necessarily think that we have to agree, because there are people in my mag, there are people in my crew, there are people in my inner circle. I don't 100% subscribe to their brand of BS. I don't 100% subscribe to their politics. I don't 100% subscribe to their religion, but that doesn't stop me from being a great friend to them or understanding their logic and why they come to this conclusion or why they believe that they're right. I don't seek to try to change that opinion when we're having the conversation. I just seek to try to understand it, relate my view, and then find some type of common ground. And again, I think this goes back to the very beginning of this conversation in finding that semblance of balance between all of it.
Yeah, this is so fascinating. Again, this is a topic that we could talk literally, for hours and hours on. And I think I agree with Hitch, just to the point that if that basic philosophy of, I love freedom, for example, right, isn't there, it makes it hard. But I think the religion one kind of applies to it too. But I think with everything going on in the world, I think one of the mistakes that a lot of preppers make when they try to go do this is they set the standard on how they feel. And the way I feel is the only way. And if I can't get them in agreeing with the way I feel, then they're just not ever going to get in the inner circle. And then they wonder why 3 years from now, they don't have anybody. So you've got to be able to give concessions somewhere along the way. We talked about the surgeon. What concessions are we willing to give up for the surgeon? Well, he happens to have a different religion. He happens to be a liberal who believes in big government. I think these are the things that you have to weigh, just all the time. And man, it's a challenge. Super. All right, guys. Well, I think another real important part of all of this is OPSEC. We've talked about looking internally. We've talked about what we look for, and we could get into, and we may at some point, the actual skill sets and those things. But OPSEC, especially in our world, is such a big thing. We have most preppers that I know are total recluse, which totally hurts their ability to build. And so let's talk a little bit about OPSEC. How much do we share? Or is it more like the military where you're on a need to know basis? Right? Because I've seen both philosophies in that. So Bobby, what do you think?
A very good friend of mine a long time ago told me during a conversation similar to this, that if your wife didn't absolutely know everything about you, including information that could be harmful to you if it ever got out, that you didn't trust her enough, and what was the point? Within the inner circle, man, the only OPSEC is really who's in the inner circle, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, the balance there is when it comes to private property, in my mind, which is really the underlying philosophy behind almost everything I believe. Not everybody in my group probably knows the exact number of 22 bullets I have, but they all know I have a lot of 22 bullets, right? So that level of OPSEC is very, very unguarded, in my opinion, within that inner circle. Within my groups, other members know where the keys to my locker is, because if I don't make it to point A or to point B for whatever reason, and 3 weeks later, devastating sets of circumstances have happened, that stuff sitting in that locker is doing nobody, including me, any good. And my folks know that if things happen, they're welcome to my locker. I wouldn't necessarily say that to people within the mag, and I most certainly wouldn't say that to people in the outer circle. But that also comes back to who you decide to bunk down with, right? Like the people in my group also have very similar opinions on private property, and they would probably wait until they just couldn't wait anymore to tap into my stuff. Once you're in the family, that tribe, you really had better have made really good choices up to that point, because they're going to know a lot about you. And while nobody will know 100% about another person, you might have some folks in the 90% range, so that's why choosing that tribe is so important, because you will have to undoubtedly have moments of weakness in front of them where you bawl your eyes out because of something that's going on in your family with a kid or a spouse or a job. And when you get into that emotionally vulnerable state, you're probably going to have diarrhea of the mouth, and you're going to say some things you wouldn't say if you weren't in that extremely vulnerable emotional state. And that includes dudes too, quite frankly. So the OPSEC for me of the intergroup is just who's in the intergroup. Past that, it's all varying shades of gray, or else it's not an intergroup.
Right? Or what's the point? Data, what do you think?
No, I can't sprinkle anything on top of that that would do it any justice. That pretty much hits the nail on the head as far as I'm concerned. I echo the vast majority of what Spags just said there. So it's really just a matter of what your interpretation of your inner group is, and then the varying shades of what you display or what's displayed there. But if you have not made good enough choices at this level, on you, because by now my children's birthdays, my middle name, you might have even seen my social security number, or you might know how many 22 bullets I have. So OPSEC at this level is, it's there, but it's also something that's, I trust you with my life and my wife or my wallet or some combination at this point. If you're in my inner circle, you are in my inner circle. I will bleed for you, and I will bleed others for you. That's just how it is.
Yeah, Hitch, is there any OPSEC in the tribe?
Not a huge amount. Sure, there's always going to be something, but at the end of the day, most things are shared. The majority of things are shared.
Well, I think there's always something, meaning that there's just something you didn't cover, or something you didn't get to, right? Those kind of things. But is there anything purposely kept under tabs inside the inner circle?
I think that's you.
You said yes?
Yes.
Yeah. So what would you consider to be something that people should keep under wraps, even inside the tribe?
If there just may be like some last key element of some last ditch effort survival thing that you have buried in the ground somewhere that just you and your wife know about because of something ever went bad with the inner circle of the tribe and you had to bail. That's your suitcase full of stuff you're going to leave with, if it actually came down to it. Or really that's about it. There's just, people change, guys.
Yes, they do.
People change, and you can't depend on everybody to be the same. Some of us have known each other, going on 10 years, and we've all changed in that 10 years. And I would say that we've all changed for the good, but there's other people I know that haven't. There's some people that I know pretty well that have changed and went a certain direction, and I don't want them knowing any more OPSEC than they already know. I can guarantee you that. And as sometimes a spouse leaves. I have a friend of mine's son who's his son was in a great marriage for a long time, and then one day she left him, said, "Nope, I've been seeing some guy at work. Sorry, bye." Wow, imagine that happening in your crew, And so yes, having that last little bit might be make or break, save your life one day if something got really drastic.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point, because people do come and people do go, over time. And so how do you mitigate the risk of people leaving, Bobby?
Is the question about what happens if someone wants to leave the inner circle?
No, the question is, because you said that there is no OPSEC inside the inner circle other than who's in the inner circle. So how do you mitigate the risk of people leaving, to Hitch's point?
Well, we're talking about building a group. There's always going to be risk. You can't mitigate everything. Hitch mentioned earlier, big government liberals who want to make rules for everything. Well, it's the same here. You can't legislate your prepper group into safety any more than you can a country or a nation or a county or a city. You can only do so much. There's only so much preparation you can do before you are just going to be wringing out the brain between your ears trying to think of every possible scenario. Now, Hitch was also right that, last ditch, nuclear buttons in the ground. But again, that goes back to the point of private property, as far as how the group is run and as far as the most, the everyday workings, though, everyone should at that point be close enough to be on the same level. and I'm not saying there's not one-off examples. I mean, I can envision a scenario where person and you are out on a patrol, protecting the perimeter, and right now things are lean, and you're the only two on patrol. And way back at the homestead, there's an attack, and you aren't there, and your kid is killed. People within the homestead at that point are probably not coming out on the radio just saying, you need to get here now, your kid's just been shot, right? I mean, sure, there are extreme circumstances that would put it in the moment, but in that tribe inner circle, you reach a point where at some point that OPSEC level may have an expiration date, as opposed to it doesn't have an expiration date outside that tribe.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I think kind of what I took from that is there is no OBSEC other than personal property, and that there maybe there is a case for some personal property OBSEC. Bobby, did I get that right?
Right. As a general rule, I might not necessarily, what if I save back some marijuana seeds, right? I might not want everybody to know that right away. I might be willing to broach that at some point when the time comes.
Mhm.
Maybe I have a distillery, a moonshining kit that I have saved away. And right now things are really, really bad. And right now would be a horrible time for anybody to have a drink, because it would just tip the balance into chaos, right?
Mhm.
But it doesn't mean a month later when things are better, I can't be like, hey guys, let's make some moonshine and have a good night. And you could come up with a myriad of scenarios in which you might not want to tell even your inner circle something right away. But again, the difference is that there's probably an expiration to that.
Mhm.
People in the outer circle, there is no expiration. I'm just not going to tell them certain things. People in the mag, there may be a very, diversity of when that expiration date happens. But in the inner circle, man, Hitch said earlier, he wants partners in crime. It's often said that good friends will bail you out of jail. The best of friends will wake up in the cell next to you going, what the hell did we do last night? If you're not at the level of what in the hell did we do last night with your inner circle, and at that point, it isn't really even OPSEC. It's just, people know where the limits are and they mind their own damn business when it comes down to certain things.
Aren't you kind of setting yourself up a little bit also, Hitch, for trouble in that, let's just play the devil's advocate game, the life's gone bad, et cetera, et cetera. And so we figured out, okay, this is how much wheat we have. And I'll just pick on wheat because it's a nice, unsensitive topic. And so we've, we've divided it up, and everyone's eating it, and then think times are getting lean. And then all of a sudden you have more. Wait, what happened? I mean, I could see that causing a whole bunch of problems that, everyone else trusted except you didn't.
You see this jar right here
I see it.
with the bean seeds in it?
Mhm.
Yeah, so let's pretend that's wheat seeds, right, for your discussion.
Okay.
And I have that buried someplace, sealed up, where I know about it. Maybe one of my family members knows about it, and no one else knows about it. And we get to a point where we're out of wheat.
Mhm.
But I know that I have enough wheat for us to plant another crop next spring.
Mm.
I'm probably not going to tell you guys that I got that little bit of wheat that's going to feed your babies through the winter. We might have to lose some people so that we have enough of us next spring. It's a decision I'm going to make as a farmer.
Mhm.
And you're going to love me or hate me next spring. It's going to be what it's going to be. But I know that little jar of wheat's not enough to feed us all through winter. So if we don't make it, we don't make it. And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. I'm not talking about that I've got, a truckload of wheat up corner of the barn. Does that make sense now what I'm saying? It's like, when you think you're at Kleenexes and you're out in the woods and dad's like, actually, son, I have, 3 Kleenexes tucked in this pocket right here. And that's just enough that, you could go wipe your butt with that while you're in the woods,
Yeah.
And I don't know, some people that know me have come to depend on me to have a little extra saved up. Or maybe I didn't consume my share one day. Maybe that bottle of wheat seed is something that was my share to eat, and I didn't eat it, and I just stored it because I thought I might need that for a rainy day. And guys, that comes on to another subject that I'd love to talk with sometime about is being the wise guy to hoard something away or store something away rather than use it. That's no different than money, right? I made an investment. I put it away. It was mine to do with, right? It was my portion. Don't dog me later when I pull my portion out, and it helps all of us.
Private property.
Well, I think that this is, we're going to get into this in the next kind of section when we start talking about governance and we start talking about sovereignty and we start talking about those kind of things. Because there's one of two rules and all of that. I think really more my question is, wheat was a kind of a bad example. I guess Hitch, maybe salt would have been a better example, something you can't produce, right? Something that can't, that everyone came together and they pooled all of their resources with salt, for example, because you can't make that. And we've rationed and we've done all of these things all to know that you're holding the bag. I think it could cause you some trouble down the road. I really do. And maybe not. Maybe it would be like, hey, great job for having some insight. I'm glad there's some extra. Maybe it wouldn't be like that, but kind of hard to, see, kind of down the future a little bit with that. But we probably need to cut this video off and get moving on with our day. But guys, we're not even close to done. It's funny, there's really 8 big talking points in the group, and we've managed today to cover just one of those. And there, again, we could talk long and long, but the next set we're going to do is on governance inside the group, which is where I think you'll find a lot of friction at, because there's a lot of different types of beliefs, and governance is kind of a rough thing, and I've seen it cause more problems in these groups probably than any other topic, in my opinion. Personal property, sovereignty, those kind of things. So I look forward to it. So I guess as we go, when we talk about the purpose of a group and the things that we discussed today, Bobby, you got any last words?
Make wise choices.
Oh,
because as well, you're right. There's going to be a lot of opinions, and core groups ultimately, when it comes to the next topic, are going to have to form around commonality. It's one of those things where there's not a whole lot of room for compromise.
Yep.
And you can have different systems, but you better make really wise choices who ends up on the receiving end of that system.
Yep. Data.
I just tell your viewers, be fluid, be like water, be the person to others that you wish they were to you.
Yep. Hitch.
Same, like I said before, just be sure you're picking out people that you can be buddies with, people that you can, do anything with. Be sure you're picking out people that make you better.
Yes.
Yeah, I think my parting words to everybody is, first, recognize that you're flawed. Because if it doesn't start with you, you're not going to get anywhere. And if you're not willing to give of yourself, if you're not willing to be generous, if you're not willing to take one for the team, if you're not willing to do those kinds of things, you have no business, taking it any further than the mag. You just don't, because it won't work in the end. And so I would take a look in the mirror first before you try to start a group, and make sure you're being a good friend, a good husband, a good father, things like that. Anyway, so guys, we will film the next video, which will be on part 2 of part 4, which I didn't know that was going to get this long, but which we're going to talk about governance and rules and loose confederation versus close confederation and those kind of things. But anyway, guys, I look forward to it. As I always say, live a little freer today than you did yesterday. Hold the line. Don't give an inch. See you guys.
See you guys.